Hi, Katelyn. It's Kristen. Very, very excited to once again be digging into your poems for week two. One of the things that I wanted to say right off the bat before I dive into your individual poems is I want you to think about parallelism when it comes to revising these poems and future poems. So I've noticed that one of the things I've noticed is that in the first drafts that you're writing, you are playing around with a bunch of different techniques, which I think is exactly right. Please don't stop doing that. That is exactly the right thing to be doing on the first draft of a poem. But when you dig a little deeper and you go to edit those poems, I want you to think about making things more parallel. So, for example, in this first poem, Playground, you start off rhyming and then you give up on the end rhyme. So I want you to decide in your next draft of this poem, do I want to have a rhyming poem and have a rhyme scheme that I stick to, or do I want no rhymes? In your second poem, The Cloudy Day, you end the first two stanzas, this I hope brings the rain. Oh, cloudy, cloudy day, this I hope brings the rain. And you add that to the second stanza as well. So I'm actually wondering why you wouldn't add that to the third stanza and make it parallel. So I want you to play around with parallelism in the next draft of these poems. I think that, ultimately you as the author, you as the poet, you as the writer get to make the final decisions about how you want to present your work and your ideas to the world. But I'm here to sort of steer you in directions that you might not have thought of and point out things that you might not have thought of as the author of those poems. So these are suggestions like, hey, try this and see what happens. So I'm excited to see. The next thing I wanted to talk about was in your poem, Playground, I think that you choose really interesting details, the mothers on their phones, right? I think there's a lot of metaphor and a lot of simile. And so my next suggestion would be, what if you expanded those images a little bit, that imagistic language, and stuck with one of them? So for example, the mothers on their phones, only here by obligation. Is there a second line you could add talking about that, extending that metaphor just a little, extending that image just a little bit? Something, birds chirping rapidly like they're in a heated argument. Could you extend that image just a little bit into a second line? So just an idea to like re-enter the space of the poem and experiment. For Cloudy Day, I think the poem's really good. It's interesting. However, the assignment was to trace a poem that you admire and then tell us what poem it was that you were tracing. And so we don't have any context here for what poem you're tracing. I actually don't think you're tracing a poem here at all. I think you mentioned in your questions, should I include the photo of what I'm describing in my trace poem? So this, I'm going to encourage you to go back to the prompt, and in your revisions, perhaps give the prompt another try. So that's it. Have a great rest of your day, and more soon.